All right, the first Democratic candidate has emerged in next year's Michigan Secretary of State race. Attorney Jocelyn Benson said she will run for the office currently held by Ruth Johnson, who is leaving because of term limits. So far, 3 Republicans are seeking their party's nomination for the race. It has been more than 22 years since a Democrat held that office. This will be Benson's second try at becoming Secretary of State. She ran in 2010 and lost to Ruth Johnson. Early to be talking about 2018, but not just this race. There's other races heating up. The 11th Congressional district, where Dave Trott says he's no longer interested in the job, has attracted all kinds of people.
Well, we have a president who launched his re-election campaign about a week after he was inaugurated.
Right.
So the campaign season
That's right. It's perpetual.
Campaign season never ends.
It does not.
Right.
And
I'm thankful for that.
Kim, I know.
Good for you, right?
Money in the bank, right? Kim, I know you know Jocelyn pretty well. She was the dean of the law school at Wayne State University, where you're on the board of governors. Talk about this. You know, I'm always skeptical about all right, I lost last time, I'm going to take another run at it and somehow believe that the voters will see me differently. What's her strategy?
If you look at where we were in 2010, we were at a very desperate place in the state's history. We had a governor who at the time was not very popular.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sexism is still a major factor. And I heard pundits actually say things like, oh, another blonde. I actually heard someone say this on a television show. Another blonde woman, no chance she's going to get elected.
Isn't Ruth Johnson a blonde woman? That's who beat her.
Yeah.
But no, I mean,
you could say that.
Well, I mean, it's true. That's who beat her. I mean, how does blonde woman play in the
Right, but I think that they were
young,
saying because
blonde,
she was young,
yeah.
you know, another Democrat. But people, no, you're right.
That was a horrible year for Democrats. Every Democrat on the ballot lost.
And she actually had a pretty good showing that time. And
she did better than a lot of
Jocelyn, from the time that she was a law student, has been very committed. She's literally written a book about how to run a secretary.
She knows more about it than almost anyone.
She's passionate about it. She can do anything. This is a woman, Harvard trained. She's making lots of money with Stephen Ross now, I would imagine. She could comfortably just kind of finish out her career there, but this is something she's very passionate about. And I can tell you from her time as dean at the law school at Wayne State, our rankings went up 17 points under her. For the first time ever, Wayne State was a top 100 law school. Actually, we're ahead of Michigan State's law school now. I mean, we saw real, and then just her fundraising ability. I mean, she's a force to be reckoned with. So I think that I'm excited about that 22-year gap that's finally going to be
going to break the streak?
I think she is definitely in a good position.
Stu, what about this idea of running again after the voters say no?
Well, I think it's possible, but I think one of the challenges she has is in the 2010 campaign, there were a couple of very the attacks on her that worked very well. One of them was the fact that she had staff that was involved in this fake Tea Party scandal, that they were actually creating this.
I remember that, right?
And she really could never give a good answer of why these people were working under her and allowed to manipulate voters like that, and what her level of accountability was. The second was when she was involved in the 2004 Kerry campaign, she worked on voters sort of the voter ballot integrities, and there was a book produced that some people said she had a role in, which said that if there was not voter intimidation, manufacture it, make preemptive strikes. And again, it was something she never really answered well. And I think those are two things that
those are things that people will bring up in 2018.
I think so, because again, I know she's sort of taken on new challenges, but that's when it comes down to who's the caretaker of elections are. That was a character thing that I think was effective.
Yeah.
I suspect 2018 is going to be a very tough year for Republicans. I think the Democratic outrage over Donald Trump does not seem to be subsiding. I wonder why. I think that'll draw turnout. Jocelyn Benson's going to has some very wealthy benefactors. You mentioned Stephen Ross. Yeah. I assume she's worked for organizations run by George Soros. I believe she's going to have a big war chest. I don't know who the Republicans are going to put up in terms of, do they have a candidate as attractive to statewide voters as Candace Miller was, as Terry Lynn Land was, as Ruth Johnson was? I mean, who do you think, Stu, is going to be in that race?
Right now, I'd say the front runner is Shelby Township Clerk Stan Grott. Yeah. Stan's a personal friend of mine. He's actually run elections pretty well in Shelby Township. He's got a great
That's
story
a pretty
of immigrant
little
rags to
base,
riches.
you know.
Well, you know, midterm elections are a little different than you know, or elections in presidential years. It's about turning your base out. And while I think the Democrats are engaged, I think Republicans are engaged too. There are a lot of Republican voters who like what the president's doing, are still intense about what the president's doing, feel like the system isn't giving him a fair chance. And I think Republicans over the last couple of cycles have done very well in midterm elections. So I think it remains to be seen.
I want to get us quickly to the 11th congressional district before we run out of time on this segment. Talk about that dynamic that Sue is talking about there, Kim. Are Republicans in a position where they can rally around some of the things that the president has said and done, the way they did to win Michigan in 2016?
I think that Donald Trump's performance as a leader, not his political skills, but his performance, his track record, which is quite light at this point. He has very few accomplishments. I think that the way that he's been divisive, and this is a district that is more diverse than it's ever been.
Yes.
I mean, we're starting to see in strongholds where there were never people of color, when there were never, you know, huge numbers of immigrants. Now, a city like Canton is tremendously diverse.
Yes.
I think that you're going to see in that district a repudiation of the president's rhetoric, and I think that whoever runs is going to have to answer, either distance him or herself from that or figure out a way that he or she can pitch it as something that is helpful to everyone, which I think is going to be a pretty tough sell.
Nolan, what do you think? That's your district. You live in that district.
I live in that district, and it's an interesting district. It goes into the western Wayne County and then into southern and western Oakland. You got a lot of big names in the race. Tim Grimel got in on the Democratic side today. Laura Cox got in. Kurt Heising is in. Just name after name, Rocky Rakowski.
Laura's actually not running. Laura, now she's running for the state Senate.
Okay, so she's not going.
It suggests there's a real, on both sides, a real sense that you could win.
Yeah,
right?
a lot of big names in the race. You know, again, I think in that regard, much depends on what this Republican Congress is able to get done between now and next spring. They don't have 12 months. Their reputation, their image is going to be sealed by spring. You had Mitch McConnell out this week saying, we're going to get this done by spring, we're going to get that done by spring. They get a real Obamacare fix done if they get a meaningful tax reform bill done, and if they figure out immigration and it's all done by May of next year, they're riding a pretty good horse into the 2008